When I decided to participate in the project about writing about my mother's story, I was a little bit hesitant because there was so much about my mother's life that I didn't know.
She was such a wonderful, vivacious, creative person.
She was sick from the time I was 8 years old, and she died when I was 12.
She had a hard life.
Half her life was spent without her husband.
She was eventually diagnosed as having schizophrenia.
It was my intention that I would write a story about my mom.
This was the divine opportunity, and I had to jump on it.
Here it is. It's right here. We have to do this.
What a good idea. I think I better do this.
At the time, I considered myself a writer who wasn't writing.
And so I sat down at my computer and I just wrote it in about half an hour. I just started with what I remembered the most.
Since she had dementia, there was no way I could really ask her.
Had to reach back.
I think collecting the facts was pretty easy and interesting.
So I had to go back and look at the pieces of paper and see when she was born.
I literally had to separate myself out of the story and just look at her.
I think just looking at her more objectively.
Because my mom died when I was young, so much of my adult life was consumed with her death.
What I could do was to tell her story from my point of view. That's all I had left.
Remember, this is not about you.
I cried a lot when I was writing it.
I had a great deal of concern that I was potentially going to disrespect my mother by telling her story.
When I recounted, some of her sort of the basic facts of her own personal history, I really began to understand what she sacrificed in order to raise her family.
Writing her story, her humor came back.
And the bonus of it was I got to reconnect with people from my family, like an aunt and cousins that I had not talked to in years.
I have been blessed with changed relationships, healthier relationships within my family.
I wanted to serve her life and show what she was really all about, and writing her mother's story really helped me.
In writing her story, suddenly I was celebrating her life.
My mother's life is seen now, acknowledged, recognized, not just as the tragedy and trauma that it is, but as a celebration.
Your whole world can change. I think for me, it was a sense of gratitude and appreciation that I never understood before.
I no longer look at my mother in terms of her death. I look at her in terms of her life.
It's quite a healing thing in the end.
Then I was so grateful I had that information, which then became a eulogy. And so I would highly recommend doing that research while your parent is still alive.
To anyone who is thinking about writing their mother's story, I say, just do it.
Like, you've got to do it because it'll illuminate your life.
Really do it.
The gifts, the rewards you can't even begin to predict. Have the courage and do it.
As vulnerable as she is, as frail as she is, she's still my mom.
She loved me. I don't know if I knew that enough.
That's a legacy too.